Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai Mathura Dham Ki Jai Jagannath Dham Ki Jai Navadvip Dham Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulasi Devi Ki Jai Yamuna Maya Ki Jai Ganga Maya Ki Jai Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. All glory to the assembled devotees. The entire world of to a supreme controller who possesses the eternal form of blissful knowledge, whose glistening hearing swinging to and fro, who manifested himself in Gokul, who stole the butter that the gopis kept hanging from the wrappers of their storerooms, and who then quickly jumped and ran in retreat in fear of the ashore, but was ultimately caught. To that supreme lord, Sri Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. Upon seeing his mother's wicked cry, he rubbed his eyes again and again with his two lotus hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick, and his legs showed a balanced belly with rose. He shivered in fright and his pearl was shook. To the Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, who is bound with his devotee's love, I offer my humble obeisances.
O super excellent pastime, Lord Krishna's holy drowned the inhabitants of Gokul in pools of ecstasy. To the devotees who were attracted only to this majestic aspect of Narayana in Vaikuntha, the Lord here reveals, I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. To the Supreme Lord, Sri Damodar, my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times.
O Lord, although you are able to give all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation, nor for eternal life in Vaikuntha. nor for any other boon. My only prayer is that your childhood pastimes may constantly appear in my mind. Oh Lord, I do not even want to know your feature of Paramatma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart.
O Lord, the cheeks of your black restorator's face, which are encircled by locks of curly hair, have become red like pepper fruit, due to Mother Yashoda's kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are of no use to me, but may this vision constantly remain in my mind.
O unlimited Vishnu, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow, and am almost like a dead man. Please shower the rain of your mercy on me. Uplift me and protect me with your nectarine vision.
O Lord, Damodara, in your form as a baby, Mother Yashoda bound you to the grinding stone with a rope or tying cows. You then freed the sons of Hare, Manigriva and Nalakavera, who were cursed to stand as trees, and he gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into your indulgence.
O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound by a rope by Mother Yashoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to your most beloved Srimati Radharani, and to your unlimited pastimes. Shri Shri Radha Damodar Ki Jai. Namaste Narasimhaya. La 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 la. Okay, we'll begin with the introduction on page number 1. Everybody there. Om Jnanatimirampasya Jnananjanakaraya Chakshurumrina. Vrishabhanus Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakapatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So, thank you everybody for coming to hear from the Srimad Bhagavad Gita. It's that time of week again where we wonder which verse we're on. Does anybody know? This says 731. Really? It doesn't. Okay. Chapter 8, text 1. Attaining the Supreme. Text 1. Juna Uvacha Kim Tad Brahma Kim Atyatmam Kim Karma Purushottama Aribhutam Cha Kim Proktam Aridaivam Kim Uchite. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the Self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Text 2. Aryagya katham kotra dehesmin madhusudana praryana kale cha katham geyosi niyatatmabihi. How does this Lord of Sacrifice live in the body? In which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? Text 3. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Bhavodhyatmam Uchite Buddha Bhavodbhavakaro Sarga Karma Samgitaha. The Supreme Lord said the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called the Self. Action pertaining to the development of these material bodies is called karma, or fruit of activities. Text 4. Adibhutam ksharo bhava purushashchadi daivatam adiyagyoham evatra deha pritambara. Physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. The universe is the cosmic form of the Supreme Lord, and I am that Lord represented as the Supersoul dwelling in the heart of every embodied being. Text 5. Antakale chamam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nastya samshayaha. And whoever at the time of death quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. Text 6. Yam yam bhapismaram bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tam ivaiti kanteya sadatad bhava bhavitaha. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. Text 7. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yudhyacha mayarpita mano buddhir mami vaishyasya samshayaha. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty of fighting. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Text 8. Pyasa yoga yuktena chetasanan yagamina paramam purusham divyam yati parthan chintayan. He who meditates on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his mind constantly engaged in remembering me, undeviated from the path, O Partha, is sure to reach me. Text 9. Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anor Aniyam Sam Anusmaredyaha Sarvasya Datharam Achinta Rupam Aditya Varnam Tamasa Parastat. One should meditate upon the Supreme Person as the one who knows everything, as he who is the oldest, who is the controller, who is smaller than the smallest, who is the maintainer of everything, who is beyond all material conception, who is inconceivable, and who is always a person. He is luminous like the sun, and being transcendental is beyond this material nature. 10. Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva pruvor madhye pranam aveshya samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. One who at the time of death fixes his life air between the eyebrows and in full devotion engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord will certainly attain to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. 11. Yadaksharam veda vito varanti pishanti yad yatayo vitaragaha yad ichanto brahmacharyam charanti tate padam sangrahena pravakshe. Persons learned in the Vedas who utter Omkara and who are great sages in the renounced order enter into Brahman. Desiring such perfection, one practices celibacy. I shall now explain to you this process by which one may attain salvation. Shri Gordon Tai Ki Jai. Okay, we'll go back to text number 1 of chapter 8. We'll read the translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada. Arjuna inquired, O my Lord, O Supreme Person, what is Brahman? What is the Self? What are fruitive activities? What is this material manifestation? And what are the demigods? Please explain this to me. Report. In this chapter, Lord Krishna answers these different questions of Arjuna, beginning with what is Brahman. The Lord also explains karma, fruitive activities, devotional service, and yoga principles and devotional service in its pure form. The Srimad Bhagavatam explains that the Supreme Absolute Truth is known as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. In addition, the living entity, individual soul, is also called Brahman. Arjuna also inquires about Atma, which refers to body, soul, and mind. According to the Vedic dictionary, Atma refers to the mind, soul, body, and senses also. Arjuna has addressed the Supreme Lord as Purushottama, the Supreme Person, which means that he was putting these questions not simply to a friend, but to the Supreme Person, knowing him to be the supreme authority able to give definitive answers. Shishi Gornatai Ki Jai. So it seems like just yesterday we were talking about these chapters. We go through the Bhagavad Gita and go back around real quick. Time flies. But these middle chapters, starting with chapter 7, it's said by the Acharyas that the first 6 chapters, how do you say it? The middle 6 chapters are like the essence of Bhakti Yoga, where Krishna is describing truly what it means to practice devotional service, to know Him in full, to come to Him only. So in chapter 7, Krishna begins explaining himself to be the Supreme Person, that he's the source of everything. And then at the end, he mentions quite a few words that throws Arjuna for a loop. He doesn't really understand them. So in the first 2 texts in these of this chapter, he's asking Krishna to clarify. He says, what is Brahman? What is the self? What is karma? What is Prakriti? What is the Adidaiva, the demigods? And in text 2, he says, how does this Lord of Sacrifice live in the body? And in which part does he live, O Madhusudana? And how can those engaged in devotional service know you at the time of death? So the first few texts, Krishna answers these questions by Arjuna and elaborates what is Brahman, what is the self, what is the karma, what is all these things. He explains them in brief. And then the last of the chapter, he answers Arjuna's last question. What's the last question that Arjuna asks? No. Next text. Yes, how can you know Krishna at the time of death? Because why is this significant? Krishna says, whatever your state of consciousness at the time of death, this is where your consciousness will go. Later in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna, he describes that the subtle body is carrying us from one body to another body, just like the wind is carrying aroma. Earlier, Bhakti Ada and I were in the kitchen and there was some aroma there and the breeze kept wafting by and occasionally you get a smell of it and you're like, what is that? Where is that coming from? Remember? Yeah, so just like the wind is carrying aroma through the sky, you can't see the wind, you can't see the aroma, but you can perceive it, it's pretty subtle. Just like that, the subtle body is carrying our gross body from another physical form to another physical form. So depending on our consciousness at the time we're leaving, that dictates where we'll be heading into our next body. So Krishna in the most of the chapter elaborates on this part of how to know him at that time of death. And there's a few famous verses that we read where Krishna is describing this. But it's very significant, and we can see our consciousness, how it's shaping and manifesting our life before our very eyes. Sometimes we're not so constantly aware, but I remember when I was first coming to devotional service and I was really meditating on this point of reincarnation and, you can almost observe how people are preparing for their next lives. Some people just want to sleep all day and not go outside and not really live an active life and just stay in and eat food. It's like they're cultivating the life of a bear. The way they're living is more in line with that. Or I've even seen like some pictures of people, they have pets and they really start adopting like the same characteristics or forms of their pets, like horses or different dogs. So our consciousness is very powerful. What we meditate on, we naturally imbibe those qualities. So the more we're associated with something, we're taking that association and it's affecting our consciousness. So as it affects our consciousness, it's affecting our outlook on life, and that's affecting the dictation of where we're headed, our life trajectory. So we can either associate with the material energy, which, where was it Krishna said? It was in one of these texts. He talks about the material energy being supremely mutable. No, no, mutable. Text 4? Yeah, the physical nature is known to be endlessly mutable. Oh, this is what you said. Sorry, I heard something different. Yeah, endlessly mutable. So the material energy is always changing. There's just different fluctuations of the material energy going on constantly, and we're being driven helplessly to try to find satisfaction within this endlessly mutable material world. Whereas the spiritual world is, it's ever fresh, it's dynamic. Earlier in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes the wise knowing the body, and you could say the material energy for that matter, to be, it's never constant, it's never the same, it's always changing. But the soul is always the same. But it's almost paradoxical because the material energy is always changing, but it's always stagnant. It's always dull. There's never some rasa juice there. So then we have the analogy of chewing the chewed. We're trying to choose something that's flavorful and we get all the flavor out. So we think, let us just chew harder and harder and harder. So we tweak this, tweak that, but it never leaves us satisfied. Whereas if one enters into the spiritual energy, then we can do the same simple activity for eternity and derive ever and ever increasing bliss. And this morning we heard really great class about the life of Narottam Das Thakur. And one thing I don't recall being mentioned was that when he got initiation from his Guru Maharaj, Lokanath Swami, he actually revealed his identity in the spiritual world and his service in the spiritual world. And his service was actually that of assisting the mandris and other gopis, but his assistance was primarily done in making milk sweets, cooking down milk, condensing milk, making burfis. So he would be engaged in his bhajan, chanting Hare Krishna, and in this meditation, he'd be doing this service. And the service wasn't just limited to his own mind, because he was actually piercing through into the spiritual energy, which is actually reality. And when he was in this meditation, this worship of service, loving devotional service, I don't know if anybody here has made burfis, but when you start to cook the milk down, it takes a consistency of like lava and it starts shooting up. And if it gets on your skin, it's very, very hot. And it's not like water where it just rolls off. It sits there and it burns really good. So he would develop burns all over his arms. And everybody in Vrindavan knew, what was going on, but he would try to hide them. He would cover them with cloths because he was embarrassed. He didn't want people to know his position. He's very humble. Whereas, nowadays, you want to show off, we get some kind of like transcendental ecstasy or some kind of high position, and we're just, yeah, look at me. But we need to follow the acharyas in their humility, in their love and devotion, service to Krishna and Guru. Anyways, the reason why I mentioned this is his service in the spiritual world. So you can read some of the writings of the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, and they describe many other characteristics and aspects of services rendered by these residents of Vrindavan, Gopas, the Gopis, and some are given very specific task that is like very simple thing. And you could think, oh, that's what eternal life is going to be like. I'm just going to like sit sit next to these people and hold this little like leaf cup waiting for them to like spit their remnants in it. But yeah, there's different devotees who have these services. So you can be given that same service, but you never doubt it for a second. You're thinking this is the most amazing thing. So this is the difference between spiritual life and material life. Material life seems like it's unlimitedly variegated, but it's just this fluctuations of the material modes. But spiritual life can seem like, oh, we're waking up at the same time, we're chanting the same mantra, the same songs, I see the same faces, I have the same haircut, same clothes, boring, 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 boring. But if we realize the purpose of what we're doing and how it connects us to Krishna in that spiritual energy, directly serving Him, then all these things are just a vehicle to help us enter into that. And when we enter into that state of consciousness, Krishna consciousness, it's ever fresh. It's always exciting. It's always more and more to realize, to be purified from. Even the gopis, who are the most exalted devotees, as taught by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even they're being ever purified in their service to the Supreme Lord Krishna. So there's always more purification, more rasa to be had and shared with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this is what Krishna is offering us in the Bhagavad Gita. Some may hear the Bhagavad Gita and think, this is simple. I've heard this many times, and I want to hear something a little more esoteric. But Krishna is giving all the knowledge that we need to enter fully into that spiritual energy, and we need to allow that to enter into our heart. And we'll get pretty soon into chapter 10, which I mentioned. The middle 6 chapters, chapters 7 to 13, I guess, are the essence of Bhakti Yoga. But within that chapter 10, Krishna speaks these 4 pivotal verses known as the Chaturshloki. So in there, he describes he is the Supreme Lord, he is the master of all. Those who are wise worship them with all their heart. And then those who worship them with all their heart, Krishna's there within their heart, destroying the ignorance and providing the path for us to come to him. So this isn't just a book, that we read in the library and you pick up one day and then you put it aside. Okay, I read that, I know that. Oftentimes I travel around distributing Bhagavad Gitas at universities, and we meet many students from India. And you know what they all say when you try to give them a Bhagavad Gita? Can you guess? Yes. I know Bhagavad Gita, I know. So I say, okay, what's your favorite shloka? They say, oh, my grandma read it to me one time when I was like 5. So the Bhagavad Gita is not a book that we just read one time. It's Krishna there. Krishna's here within these pages of this book, inviting us into this ever blissful spiritual world. And Krishna puts a seal of approval on this statement at the end of the Bhagavad Gita, where he says, the wise who study this book worship Krishna with their intelligence. True intelligence is noticing that this is potent and I want to learn this, I want to study this so I can know God, I want to know Krishna. Krishna is saying that's a proper use of intelligence. So if we go beyond just the formalities of, just words being in a book, and really allowing that to enter into our life, seeing that Krishna is really there within my heart, guiding me and directing me to him, giving me the knowledge, the know-how, the means to come to him. How much faith do we have in that? Because if every day we're in our mind, we're casting doubts of, why am I doing this? This is boring. This is tough. I want to go home. I want to do this. I want to do that. How much are we really trusting Krishna? We're limiting Krishna. Krishna is unlimited, and he's fully opulent in all ways. And the more that we aren't trusting him and letting him into our life to guide us and direct us and, be open to him to do this, it's really limiting him. And Krishna, He wants to bless us with unlimited blessings. It's just a matter of how much we're open to it. And Krishna says, I reward those according to their degree of surrender. To our degree that we want to know Krishna, we want to serve Krishna, then Krishna will reciprocate. But it's very interesting because we may first come to the temple and we make a big leap of faith, and it's all a big change, and then Krishna's there, and sometimes you feel some blessing, some mercy, but then it gets tough. You're facing the mind, all your desires, anxiety, depression, all these things that come up. But if you really let Krishna in and you push a little harder, pray deeper to Krishna, open up to Krishna, depend upon Krishna, then Krishna can help us through that so much more. And as we go a little bit forward further, then we might hit some more points of stagnation. But as we push a little further and open more, then Krishna blesses us more. And it's like this infinitely. This is this purification where Krishna's inviting us into the spiritual world full of unlimited bliss and rasa. So we just need to keep steady in the process, keep chanting Hare Krishna with sincerity, and keep the association of devotees, and depend upon Krishna to hold up to his words that he's saying. He's there to guide us and to enlighten the sincere souls. So we can keep reading some more verses unless somebody has some comments or questions or thoughts or doubts. Yes, Dr. David.
Did we get to text 10 in chapter 8?
Yes.
Okay, so when it says one who at the time of death fixes his life hair between the eyebrows and bold of the bush and engages himself in remembering the Supreme Lord will certainly attain the Supreme Lord. Is that like you learn to focus between your eyebrows and remember the Lord, practice that, and then when you die, that's what you should do? And is it another question along those lines is that why in India they have the dot between the eyes, or is that something else?
So, like I said, Krishna addresses Arjuna's questions in this chapter, and then most of the chapter he deals with this point of how to remember him at the time of death. And he describes the process of a yogi, fixing his mind, like you said, preparing to leave his body. Then he also describes what it's like for people who are leaving and return to this world, or people who leave and go on. They leave during the daylight, during the time of year when the sun is present, versus people who are destined to come back. They take the path of the moon, of darkness. They leave when there's smoke and inauspiciousness. But this doesn't apply to the devotee. This is the path of a yogi, which is relying on their own effort and like mechanical means to control the mind and fix their mind on where they want to go. We have a book that Prabhupada wrote. It's called Easy Journey to Other Planets. It says easy, but I don't think it's so easy. But he describes how the yogi can fix his consciousness on a particular planet, and then he can leave his body at will and go there, just at the time of death, because you're leaving your body. But the path of the devotee is to just fully depend upon Krishna. It's like, if there's a parent, and I'm a parent, and I have two kids, one kid's a little bit older and one kid's very young. The older kid is expected to carry some weight and do some more chores and, help out, do some things. But the young one, it's like I have to look out for him. As soon as he cries, you have to go pick him up. You have to take care of him. You have to give him what he needs. So this is the path of a devotee. It's just depending upon Krishna. So then we chant Hare Krishna. We're serving Krishna constantly. So then wherever Krishna wants to take us, he'll take us. And in this way, there's no need to artificially try to fix our mind in this mechanical way. And as far as this, I can't give you a definitive answer. But, I could tell you what I've heard, but I'd have to research more to give you like a proper answer, and we could do that. But yeah. So sometimes this chapter is actually called the yoga of death, because it's teaching about the process of leaving one's body. Pretty sure the last text, let me see. Yeah, so at the last text, last two texts, text 27, Krishna says, the devotees who know these two paths, O Arjuna, are never bewildered. They are always fixed in the devotion. So the devotee is aware of these paths, but he's not disturbed. He's just fixed in devotion, depending upon Krishna. And then the last text, text 28, person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. So just by taking up devotional service alone, then we're granted all the benefits of studying the Vedas, pious activities, performing sacrifices, and you don't have to try separately. You reach the supreme abode by Krishna's grace. But the next few days, we'll get into the more of the points that you mentioned of fixing the concentration beyond the eyebrows and raising one's consciousness. Actually, in the Bhagavatam, it describes it further. It talks about the yogi will need some water to plug up the holes of the 9 gates, actually, so he can force his prana, his life presence, out through the skull. And he'll do this by sitting in a certain asana, and he'll plug his bottom hole, with his heel, and then his other holes. He's like all his energy is directed through his skull, and he can leave his body at will. And it's said that when one leaves their body through the higher gates, it's more auspicious. If one leaves their body through lower gates, it's very inauspicious, and one is destined to come back to lower life form. So there's many other things you could talk about, but in simple, like I said, just depending upon devotional service, and Krishna's my maintainer. So whatever happens is Krishna's mercy. It's actually nothing good or bad for a devotee. It's just another opportunity for service. My Guru Maharaj, when he's leaving his body, he is convinced, and he'd say this, a devotee doesn't die. A devotee just has a change of service. So I'm in this body, and I may be given another material body, or I may be given a spiritual body. It doesn't really matter. It's just a different service opportunity. So a devotee just embraces devotional service, and in that way, Krishna is always there, and then there's always a life that's blissful and purposeful and ecstatic. So I hope that helps at all. Any other points, questions, comments? Yes. Dr. Joseph.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, I really liked what you said about the spiritual world being ever fresh, ever fresh. This is nice. I had a question about in the material world, when the modes have been a little bit lighter, and I haven't been so aware of my suffering, and I'm seemingly in this really nice place. I'm always worried about losing it. I'm aware that it's temporary. And sometimes here at the temple, when things are going really nicely for me, and I'm really enjoying the devotee association, and I'm looking around at how precious this moment is, I also become aware that it's going to change. My service will change, but I don't necessarily want it to. I don't want some of the devotees to leave. I don't want to be away from them. I don't want the moment to change, but it does. So maybe you can pacify this yeah, maybe you can help me understand why things are temporary, even like spiritually speaking, or maybe they're not temporary and I'm looking at things in a misconceived way.
So this morning we're hearing about Narottam Das Thakur. Narottam Das Thakur, he was criticized by other personalities, brahmanas, other people who couldn't understand his devotional sentiment. He would lament in a very pitiable way, you could say, like really like losing it, lamenting over the association of his close personal associate, Ramachandra. This is Ramachandra Kaviraj, but also the six Goswamis of Vrindavan, and especially Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he was lamenting, and people who couldn't understand, they said, you could say, Prabhu, didn't you read the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita? You're not your body. Why are you lamenting over that? So a devotee is always lamenting over the loss of great association that's helping him. I mean, that's real association, that's real friendship. It's helping us connect to Krishna, but it's very special. So I just bring that up to point out that there's nothing really wrong with that sentiment. But in terms of how you mentioned, okay, I might be in a good material situation and, I don't have such good karma, but there was a few times, maybe just only a few times, where it was like things were going so good and so perfectly. I just knew that disaster was right around the corner. I just knew it, and sure enough, it always was. So like that was there. So there's an anxiety because it's like things are going good now and I might lose this. But in the spiritual rasa, it's actually the opposite. Whereas like Lord Chaitanya was teaching this love through separation. And Narottam Das Thakur, one hears about his life, his whole life was spent in separation. Narottam Das Thakur was Narottam Das Thakur appeared shortly after the disappearance of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So he would see all the devotees coming from Puri and going to the Ratha Yatra and traveling on this pilgrimage, and he would hear stories and pastimes about Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but he was too young and he missed him. So then when he was older, he rushed to Vrindavan because he wanted to go associate with the disciples of Lord Chaitanya, who actually had personal association with Lord Chaitanya. And by the time he got to Vrindavan, most all of them left also. So then there's only a few. And then he even went to Navadvip Dham to see, and when he got there, there was hardly anybody left. It was like the feelings were like a graveyard, it was like dark and grim. It was like lifeless. Everybody was sad after Lord Chaitanya left. But his whole life was spent in this hankering, this like desire to have that association. So in spiritual life, when we have that limitation, it's actually bringing us closer. You actually are connected in that separation. Whereas it's described in the Nectar Devotion, it's like the gopis are thinking of trying to enjoy with Krishna. So all day they're thinking of when will Krishna come back? When will we be able to unite? When will we be able to share that special time? And it's like poison to them because it's like they're away from Krishna, but their thoughts of thinking of that time of reuniting with Krishna is their only solace. And in that way, they're actually connected to Krishna. But then when Krishna's there, they're thinking, oh no, he could leave at any time. So there's that little bit of anxiety, even when Krishna's there, that he could leave. Whereas when there's separation, there's this hankering, which feels like poison, but it's always like bringing you closer and closer and closer. So, and I just share these things to build more of a context where if we have very good association, we have a good situation, that's great. And, it's nothing wrong with taking pride in that. There's spiritual pride and there's material pride. And we shouldn't be prideful in our own doings, our own egotistical, egocentric ways, our family, our wealth, our opulence. All these things are just borrowed from Krishna. But we should be very, very prideful of our spiritual lineage, Srila Prabhupada, of the Acharyas, of glorifying Narottam Das Thakur, and ultimately glorifying the Lord. In India, they're really big on family history, and people will ask you, like, what gotra are you from? Gotra means like, which family lineage are you from? So my Guru Maharaj, he tell them you're from Achyuta Gotra, which means the infallible Gotra, meaning the Gotra coming from the Supreme Lord. So when we look up at these acharyas, it's not that we should just see like persons on the wall and feel disconnected from them. We should see that this is actually our family. This is our forefathers. This is our shelter. This is everything. So when we take initiation, we're actually joining this family, and this family will never let you down. So you may be here, you may be there, you may be doing this service, you may be doing that service, but as long as you're connected to that parampara, whether you're feeling separation for it or you're actually directly connected to it, so to speak, because you're always connected to it. Once, if you want to be connected to it, you could say, then there's no difference, So we may lament over a certain association, and I've been here a short time, and I've seen some devotees come for a day and leave. Some devotees come for 2 days, 3 days, leave. Some for 4 years and leave. And every single one of them, I feel, man, I really wish they'd come back. I wish, I missed them. I wish I could have done better. I wish. So, yeah, we should value the association we have. We should value the service that we're given, but ultimately depend upon Guru and Krishna. And if Guru and Krishna wants me to go here, wants me to go there, then that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to embrace that. But still, it's not that you just turn your back on this place and forget about, all these aspects are tied in together. So I don't know if I gave you like a fully clear, practical answer, but just a philosophical, broad-minded seeing how our acharyas and life is in a spiritual world relate to these points. Spiritual life is full of personality. It's never devoid of personality, but sometimes in the name of a personal philosophy, we become very impersonal, actually. And this is something that needs to be checked. Because it's very easy to, okay, I got this dress, and I think I mention this all the time, like in every class, but I got this dress now, I got this mantra, I got the temple program, I got this book, I learned shlokas, I figured it out, and then still within our like relationships, we can be very impersonal and not really like care for one another and support one another on a deep level. So we should see that Krishna is a person, and Krishna is supremely loving. He loves us endlessly, and he wants the best for us. And we should be open to that love and also try to love others like Krishna is loving them. That this is a spiritual soul, and you have a very special and unique thing to offer Krishna that no other jiva can offer. So my goal should try to help every other jiva find that and offer to Krishna. And this is the mood of Srimati Radharani, of selfless service, that she loves Krishna so much, she's willing to sacrifice her own like enjoyment with Krishna, that she could bring others to Krishna because they can serve and please Krishna in a way that nobody else can, and that's more pleasing for Krishna. But in this way, Krishna becomes endeared to her, and then this is why she's topmost devotee, filled with most love and devotion. But as we mature in devotional service and move away from being self-centered, like here's me and here's Krishna, me and my service, me and my mind, me and my problems, and try to cultivate an atmosphere of helping others around us serve Krishna more favorably, and also being compassionate to the fallen souls, giving books to people, getting them to chant Maha Mantra, and creating a space for them to come and participate in, then that's more pleasing to Krishna, because instead of you just focusing on my service, my this, my that, my that, we're seeing the difference. Okay, here's the devotees, here's the Lord, here's those who are ignorant, they don't know, and then those are the atheists. Let's try to associate with the devotees and create really strong personal relationships and help support one another. Let's go out and work together and reach the conditioned souls and give them an opportunity to enter into this blissful spiritual circle, and then worship the Lord. And to those who are atheists, we birds of a feather flock together, we stick together and help each other stay strong and avoid those people who are just going to pollute our mind and, froth at the mouth, speaking atrocities. So, yeah, lots of things. I hope that helps at all. So, that's time. Anybody has anything else we could talk after class? Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Shri Shri Gauranatai Ki Jai. Panchakapatarubhyascha kripasinve vichapatitanam bhavane vaishnavebhyo namo namah.